This video is going to be comparing two objectives. The first one is our base case of maximising the net present value. And the second one is a surprisingly common thought that we should minimise the costs. This is going to be a fairly short video because when you take minimising costs to an extreme, you get really ridiculous answers. So we're not going to take it as fully to the extreme as we could, but you'll still see that this will give you ridiculous answers. If you took minimising costs to an extreme, then you would shut down the mine. Because mines are very expensive to run, processing costs a lot of money, mining costs a lot of money. You can save those costs if you shut down the mine. Unfortunately, you shut down the revenue as well, which is a disastrous thing to do. So we're not going to that extreme, but we're going close in this video. And I hope that you see that by pushing something to an extreme, you can tell whether it's an objective that you can really live with and use robustly, or whether it must be used in very constrained situations. So this is clearly an objective that must be used in extremely constrained situations. Okay, we're going to use the 10 sequence Antarctica mine for our base data set, and we're going to be using the minimized costs for our comparison case. Now you can have a look at the input parameters here. The input parameters stay the same for both cases. And then let's have a quick look at the schedule. Now you'll see this big warning that comes across here. The reason is we've actually lost value. We're producing negative $3.5 billion of NPV. So a disastrous thing to do. We're $11 billion worse off than if we had have maximised the net present value. Our mine life, we've got 12.5 years, so we've lost some time there. We're not actually processing any ore, and we finished the mine in 2032. So let's have a look at the schedule as to what's actually happening in this case. In this case, we've applied an extremely high cut-off grade. A cut-off grade so high that there's not actually any material within this cut-off grade. There's no material to go to the mill. So when you start sending material to the mill, if you're only looking at costs, you're actually incurring more costs every time you send material to the mill. We actually mine the material and then we don't process it. We're saying you have to mine it, but you don't have to process it. So we apply a high cut-off grade, we don't process it, we just send the maximum amount of material to the mining fleet and then we don't process anything. So our mill capacity is zero the whole way. What effect does this have on the economics? We don't have any revenue. We just have costs. So it's a disastrous situation. But if you look at the costs, in our base case, we have $12.4 billion of costs. In this other case, we have $6.2 billion. Objective achieved. We have reduced the costs, but we have also reduced the revenue down to zero, and so the NPV down to negative $3.6 billion. I hope that you can see that this is a disastrous objective. And so if you ever need to reduce costs, you need to do it in a framework that stops you reducing costs which are actually contributing to the value. So if you're just wasting money, then sure, get rid of those costs. But if those costs contribute to revenue generating activities that generate more revenue than the costs that you save, then you should leave those costs in. Sometimes you even increase the costs so that you get even more revenue. So really what you need is a framework to reduce your costs and make sure you're not reducing costs that destroy value. Feel free to leave some comments below and then go make the most of the resources we've been entrusted with.